Hey everyone, welcome. If we haven't met before, I'm Rebecca Pickens. I'm a certified book coach and developmental editor, and I'm host of Self-Editing Essentials, a group coaching program for writers who have finished or almost finished writing their novel or memoir and are ready to learn the art of self-editing. If you would like to learn more about the services provide writers, you can see those links in the comment section below. And if you like this video, I would be so grateful if you would hit like. That helps me continue to deliver free content to writers. And for more videos like this one, hit subscribe. Every Tuesday, I drop new videos about writing, editing, and publishing. I would love if you would join me. Today, I am answering a question from a member of my group coaching program. She's writing a character-driven novel, and she had a question about mastering your opening pages. This is because, as you probably know, those first pages of your novel are so important. This is your chance to hook the interest of literary agents, publishers, and all kinds of readers. So whether you are getting ready to submit a query letter to a literary agent, or you are self-publishing and you just want to ensure that writers stick with your story, those first pages are going to matter a lot. Character-driven novels follow a lot of the same rules. They rely on a lot of the same elements as any novel will on the first pages, but there are some differences too. So I want to dig into those today. Often, when writers come to me asking about the first pages of their character-driven novel, they're coming to me with similar questions. And these include, do I need to follow the standard formulas? Meaning they've read all about what makes an opening page of a novel work. And they're wondering if it's the same thing for a character-driven novel. They ask, should I start with a provocative event or a dramatic inciting incident? Can I do a slow build instead? What do readers expect in character-driven fiction? These are all super smart questions, and I want to dig into them now. But first, I think it's helpful just to make sure that we have defined what we mean by character-driven novel. The easiest way to identify whether you're looking at a character-driven novel or whether you're writing one is, does the plot grow out of people rather than events? Your story may or may not have a really exciting dynamic of plot, but what would make it character driven is that your reader isn't showing up for that plot. You're showing up to see how the characters you are writing about respond to that plot. How does that plot change your character? How are they reacting to your plot's elements in a way that is different than we might expect, in a way that's extra interesting, and that makes us continue to read? The story is unfolding because of who your characters are and about the choices that they make and how those choices change them as a result of the plot. Character-driven novels focus on inner life and the relationships of your characters. And these kinds of novels have very high emotional stakes. They look at changing identity, new connection, and it's growth. It's the growth of your character that is driving that narrative arc forward. The events matter, not so much because of the events themselves, but because of the way they impact your character. So something like a breakup, a move, or even something as quiet as a dinner conversation can shift the entire trajectory of a scene or of your story's narrative arc. People who show up for these kinds of novels are there for some key things. They're looking for character voice that's distinctive and vibrant and interesting. They're looking for depth and insight rather than simply a fast-moving plot. Now, your story may also have a fast-moving plot with lots of twists and turns. That's fine. But it is primarily featuring these other elements that we talk about your character. So here are some great mentor texts you might consider looking at if you are working on a character-driven novel. A Gentleman in Moscow, which was, of course, hugely popular and so beautifully written. Where the Crawdads Sing, Donna Tartt's The Secret History is one of my favorites. And, of course, Barbara Kingsolver's award-winning Demon Copperhead, which is all about a compelling character. These texts are fantastic to look at to see how these writers did that balancing act of giving us characters we could really care about and really interested us, but also kept them moving along in a way that was propulsive, that made us turn the pages. If you are interested in using mentor text and you want to learn more about ways to do so, I have a video. I'll stick the link in the channel in the comments below, but it's all about ways that you can use a mentor text to really help you learn what your style is, your own individual style and unique voice is. Here are some examples in YA fiction that also feature character-driven writing. Now, you will notice that these stories also have lots of plot. There's lots going in these stories. But what makes them character driven is we see firsthand how the characters are impacted by the dramatic events that unfold in these stories. So these aren't necessarily quiet, slow moving stories, but they have very rich characters in them. I always like to remind writers that I work with that when you are writing a story, and you are planning to share it with readers, you are in a way entering into a sort of informal agreement with your reader that you are meeting certain expectations. So, depending on the genre that you're writing, your reader comes to your story with a unique set of expectations. When it comes to character-driven novels, your readers are showing up for several key things. Characters who feel alive and vibrant and unique and interesting. These characters don't have to be likable necessarily, but they do need to be interesting. They do need to be dynamic and to reveal something about life that's interesting to the reader. These characters have a unique voice and unique perspective that helps them respond to what may be a very ordinary set of circumstances, but they respond to them in a way that is interesting to readers. These characters tend to have great emotional depth. Their internal stakes are high, meaning that depending on how they react to circumstances, the outcomes will be very different. And we are looking at the way that these characters relate to the other people in their lives. Often relationships are some of the extenuating circumstances that complicate the plot and make it extra compelling. In your opening pages, you don't need to start with some great grand action. What you need, though, oh, and I should back up and say you can have some kind of dramatic, inciting incident, but you don't have to have it. But what you do need is a vivid set of very specific details that ground the reader in your story, in the scene, in the life of the characters you are about to share. We want to have a sense very early on, preferably in that very first page, of whose story this is. Who is going to be taking us on this journey? Who are we supposed to invest in most deeply? And we want to hint at that deeper tension, at something that's off in this character's world. So while character-driven literature is often it's quieter, a little more, a little slower than other kinds of genre fiction, there is a sense that there's something wrong, that there's a reason for us to stick around and find out what's going to happen. I want you to keep these points in mind while I read a little excerpt to you. This is from, I shared this with my group the other day. This is Baba Junja's Last Love, and it's by one of my favorite authors, Alina Bronsky. And this is a fantastic mentor text if you are writing a character-driven novel. It's the story of Baba Junja, and she is an elderly woman who lives in a village that was struck by that was affected during the Chernobyl nuclear accident many years ago. And her she and the people in her village make the decision to stay. They're going to stay put despite the very high levels of radiation in their village. And this is a very quiet story of this woman's reaction to living under these circumstances. So again, as I'm reading to you, be looking for specific details that ground us, a sense of whose story this is, and a hint at a deeper tension, whatever is off about this story. I'm awoken in the night again by Marja's rooster, Constantine. He's like a husband for Marja. She's raised him, and she pampered and spoiled him even as a chick. And now he's full grown and good for nothing. Struts around the yard imperiously and leers at me. His internal clock is messed up, always has been, though I don't think it has anything to do with the radiation. You can't blame the radiation for every stupid thing in the world. I lift up the covers and let my feet drop to the ground. On the floorboards is a carpet I crocheted out of strips of old bed sheets. I have a lot of time in winter because I don't have to tend to my garden. I rarely go out during winter, only to fetch water or wood or to shovel snow from my doorstep. But it's summer now, and I'm on my feet at 5 in the morning to go wring the neck of Marja's rooster. Every morning I'm surprised when I look at my feet, which look knobby and swollen in my German hiking sandals. The sandals are tough. They'll outlive everything, surely, including me. I didn't always have such swollen feet. They used to be delicate and slim, caked with dried mud, beautiful without any shoes at all. Yegor loved my feet. He forbade me to walk around barefoot because so much as a glance at my toes made men hot under the collar. When he stops by now, I point to the bulges protruding from the hiking sandals and I say, "See what's left of all their splendor." He laughs and says, "They're still pretty. He's been very polite since he died." The liar. So, as you can see, this is obviously a very vivid voice of our protagonist. She is funny, she is pragmatic, she is wry, she makes all kinds of observations about her environment. We can tell we are in for a ride with this character that we are most likely to enjoy. And we've got lots of specific details about the floorboards, about the rooster. We get a sense that she is probably in a rural area. We get a sense of her age. We have a good sense of who this story is going to be about. And in a very subtle way, we are privy to that deeper tension, that sense of something that's off about this story. Why is she talking about radiation in such a nonchalant kind of way? And what is that detail going to, what impact is it going to have on the story as things move forward? So this is again, just one more time because I love this book and I want to promote it every chance I get. It is a fantastic mentor text if you are writing a character-driven novel. So many writers come to me asking, can I do a slow build? Am I going to lose readers' attention? Are literary agents going to be turned off if I do this slow build? And I tell them, absolutely not. Right? Readers who are showing up for a character-driven novel, they will hang in there and they will enjoy it if certain elements are in place. A build works when every scene is giving the reader something to emotionally latch onto, something to care about. We can use dialogue, for example, to reveal conflict, desire, or mystery in a way that is quiet, that is slow, but that gets the reader's interest and makes them want to hang in there. A slow build will work when small choices hint at bigger stakes. So again, if you look back on this reading that I just, this passage that I just read to you, we get that sense of from this very voicey character that there is tension, that there are bigger stakes at play, that there has been loss, and that we are going to watch this character probably navigate this loss. And so we're here for it. We want to see what's going to happen. So a slow build is not a negative as long as we remember to keep that level of interest high by inserting some of the things we've just talked about. Oftentimes, when a writer is working on a genre that's very reliant on plot, they are tuned into their scene, to each scene's structure and how stacking one scene onto the next is going to really drive their story forward and make their structure work. Sometimes in character-driven fiction, writers lose sight of the importance of scene structure. And that's because we get really excited about the character, all the different elements of the character. But no matter how great your character is, it is still very useful to think in terms of those standard elements that we want to see in a successful scene. And that includes a goal, an obstacle, a choice, and an ultimate, an outcome of change. In character-driven novels, that obstacle may be more subtle. Um, but it is still important that it be there because the obstacle is what gives your scene a structure and it gives your character something to react to. And all of this is what moves your story forward and keeps it compelling, keeps that narrative drive going, even if your story is a quiet one. So in character-driven novels, that obstacle might be more subtle. It may be an awkward silence, a hidden resentment, the fear of saying the wrong thing, right? We can have subtext that is subtle, but we want to make sure we're giving our character enough to react to, that they are doing interesting things, that they are dynamic, and they are giving the reader something to connect with and to keep them reading about. There are some do's and don'ts when we're doing this kind of writing. We want to make sure to start with a strong sense of voice, like we heard in our example. We want to make sure that our characters are acting, that they are reacting to the obstacles that we put in front of them. And we want to make sure that even the smallest of conflicts carry weight. And what I mean by that is often in character-driven novels, we're not looking at bank robberies, we're not looking at giant hurricanes necessarily. We could be, but we may be looking at something as simple as a writer who, rather a character who can't start their car in the morning because it's super cold outside. And we need to see how that situation, which is kind of ordinary, it's probably happened to many of us, how that obstacle, that bit of conflict carries weight and is going to impact your character's life in some way that is significant and interesting. So, for example, this character who can't start their car, they may make a choice to call someone from their life that they shouldn't necessarily call. It might be an ex or a friend that they've been in a lot of conflict with, but they call them anyway because they're desperate. They need to get to work for whatever reason. There's an important meeting, or they've missed a lot of work lately and their boss is starting to track their attendance more carefully. Whatever it is that makes them make that phone call, could set off all kinds of new can be responsible for creating all kinds of new plot details, all kinds of new texture to the story. It's important not to rely too much on description or backstory early on. And I include that here because I see that a lot in character-driven novels. Oftentimes, these kinds of novels are very lyrical, they're very beautifully written, and those writers, myself included, really enjoy writing descriptive prose and lots of backstory because it's fun to write and it's interesting to write. But we need to be very careful that those kinds of details are actually informing our story in some kind of significant way. So, for example, writing about the landscape this early on is only beneficial if that landscape is immediately impacting your character's trajectory, and then we need to know about it immediately. Otherwise, try to hold off on too much descriptive detail and too much backstory so early on. Those are the kinds of details you can sprinkle throughout your novel. You don't want to front end those early pages with too much of that, or you run the risk of losing the reader's interest. It's important not to mistake a quiet novel or a quiet character for one that is static. And by static, I mean someone who never changes, a character who just is flat throughout your story. Quiet stories still have lots of change, lots of tension. It may be quieter, it may rely on a lot of subtext, but still there should always be change happening in your story in order for the reader to feel like they are invested and they have something to stick around for. Also, don't forget, your reader needs to be curious on page one, right out of the gate, just like any other kind of story. We do want to capture their curiosity. Oftentimes in character-driven novels, the protagonist is actually a passive character. And that can be really fun because protagonists can feel powerless, they can be reluctant to act, they can struggle with inertia. This can be a very fun character to write and read about. However, it's important that even when we're writing about passive characters, our storytelling is still dynamic and energizing and captures our readers' interest. So how do we do that? How do we keep energy high when we're writing about a very passive character? There are some really easy ways actually to go about doing that that will have an enormous impact on the way that your reader experiences that character. The first way is to give that character strong interiority. Make their thoughts and their judgments and their yearnings feel vivid. So even though your character may not be responding physically to whatever's going on around them, they may have a very flat face. People around them may think that they're not doing anything, that they're completely frozen in place. But when we know what is going on in their minds, perhaps they feel very uncomfortable by the fact that they're inactive, that they're not doing anything. When we know that, when we know what they are thinking, even though they are being passive, the writing is being active because it's engaging us in the interior life of that character you're writing about. In those instances, even your character's hesitation can be compelling and it can make us feel empathy for your character. Another way to keep the energy going is to let the world really press on that passive character by applying external pressure, demands from other characters and circumstances. We get to see that passive character react. We get to see the way they are navigating this kind of chaotic life that's unfolding around them. And so our interest as readers is maintained. Because even not acting is going to have a set of consequences that can be very interesting to read about. It's also really helpful to highlight micro conflicts. So, what I mean by that is awkward silences, unspoken resentment. All of these things can add to a feeling of friction, which carries with it tension. And these are the things that readers show up to read about and to feel. And making sure that the stakes are high, even though, so we're looking at like, what is that character risking by remaining so passive? What are going to be the consequences of their decision not to engage more actively, with whatever is going on around them? So finally, just to summarize, I've just thrown a lot at you. So to wrap up and consider what we've been talking about. Readers want to feel hooked by the person, not just the plot of a character-driven novel. Above all else, it's that person you're writing about that is of greatest interest. A slow build can absolutely work in this kind of fiction if every page, every one of those slow burn pages rewards the reader in some way. And standard formulas can absolutely help guide you in the pacing of a character-driven novel. But there are ways that this kind of writing can sort of bend these rules a little bit and do some interesting things that we may not be able to play with in other genres. So keep these things in mind as you go forward with your character-driven novel. And as long as we have these elements of tension, these elements of interiority, a quiet beginning can absolutely work. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, if you would hit like and subscribe to my channel, I would be so grateful. That gives me the chance to continue providing this kind of content. And please, if you have written a character-driven novel or you're in the process of doing so, I would love to hear all about it. Tell me about a character you have written about who really was a lot of fun to present to readers. I would love to know about that experience right there in the comments section. And if you have any questions, reach out in comments or email me, and I will try to answer those questions for you. All right. Thank you. Happy writing.